All right, what's up, everybody? Happy Tuesday, and welcome to another episode of Cafecito and Canes. Decided to switch it up. I'm not wearing the usual Canes gear today, but that's decided to switch it up with the heat, which is appropriate for my guest guy. And he's a guy that I think I've told him this already. I was a fan of his back when he was on the radio years ago. I used to listen on my way home from work. He would talk some Canes. Actually, throwback, used to do there was an MMA show, I think, on QAM that he used to do. I used to listen to that as well, so I remember him from that. Now he does Locked On Canes, which is growing really fast. It's great content. I listen to it, a few times a week, at least. Hey, Mitch, what's going on, my friend? I listen a few times a week. It's great stuff. He's been covering the Canes for a long time. So without any further ado, I will bring him in. Mr. Alex Donno. What's going on, sir?
Well, John, the intro was way too kind, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate the support. And I love the name of this show because I drink so much coffee. I drank an entire colada this afternoon. I made myself at least 2 espressos earlier in the day, so I'm wired 24/7.
Yeah, unfortunately, the cafecito part of my show, really, it's more for like the pregame during the season, because I tried it and I found out the hard way. I cannot do it 7th night. Like I won't sleep.
Yeah. I cut myself off usually around like 5. So like the last one that I had today was around 3:30 because the caffeine will keep me up for sure.
Yeah. It's a different animal, but so the chat's starting to fill up. Ken, what's up? Fernando, what's going on, sir? So I wanted to, obviously, you got great insight on the team and all that. I've been wanting to have you on for a little bit. So I thought this was a great time to have you on just a week and a half before essentially what is Christmas for all of us, the start of the college football season. So I wanted to cover a few topics. One of the things I wanted to cover was what you ended your last show with, which I think dropped today. You were talking about the new stadium renderings. So can you still hear me?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm losing you or you're losing me. I don't know whose
it's hard to tell. Yeah, I can never tell on StreamYard if it's me or the other person. Sorry. So guys, if you're watching, the internet's a little choppy. This is my second to last week in my temporary studio. I move again soon. So last month and a half's been kind of a mission. But yes, the renderings. Let's talk about that. So John Ruiz recently dropped his, like artist renderings of what the stadium, it's like a concept of what it's going to look like. It might not be exactly like this, but I think most people agree. It's pretty dope. Like this new stadium. Donna, I think you grew up in Miami like I did. In your opinion, what do you think about us getting a new stadium and where it's going to be in Tropical Park? Like what impact does it have for the team and for the university, do you think?
Well, the first thing is that, and I think a lot of people maybe miss this point when they're debating whether or not Miami needs a new stadium or a different stadium, is that I've got to think that there's a benefit to having your own stadium and not renting stadium space from somebody else. Like I've got to think that if they crunch the numbers, and listen, I'm saying this just as an assumption, right? Because I don't know, because if John Ruiz and his family, if they bankroll this, I don't know what the revenue situation is going to be between him and the university. Is this just a gift they're giving to the university? And maybe some of these questions have been answered, but when you're leasing this stadium from Stephen Ross, I've got to think that owning your own park, that there's a long-term financial benefit to that. I think that's one point that people are missing on this a little bit, because I do agree that Hard Rock Stadium is beautiful. Like there's no question. It's a world-class facility. They're going to be hosting World Cup games. They've hosted Super Bowls, national championship games. They're going to be hosting the national title game again in 2026. So, I mean, really nobody in good faith can say that that's not a great stadium. It's one of the best facilities in the country, right? But I do think that some of the fans who live in Broward and Palm Beach, who come to games regularly, I think they feel a little bit alienated by the idea of putting it like deep in Dade County And the traffic, and I've lived in Dade County for most of my life. I had a couple years of a detour in Broward, then I was back in Dade. The traffic sucks, like all over Dade County. The traffic is terrible. I get it. It would be no picnic, on a heavy traffic day getting down to Tropical Park. I understand that. I do think that there's value to being closer to campus. I think there's definitely value in owning your own stadium. And then, another big part of it is that, potentially having a retractable roof, because that was something that John Ruiz was talking about. That would save you potential lightning delays, right? And, I think it would be a good thing. And the stadium does look beautiful. I want to see maybe a little bit more if they do make this a reality, because I'm not convinced that this ever actually happens. But if they do make this a reality, I'd like to see maybe a little bit more CANES stuff all over the stadium to really make it feel like it's your own building. And one of the things, John, that I was talking about on my show today is that I don't think people should be taking the artist renderings like completely literally. Like, these are not blueprints, because there's a few things obviously missing from this. I don't see any suites. I don't see any press boxes. I don't see any video boards there, which you would obviously have. You would have to have these things when the stadium is actually completed. So I think it would be a nice opportunity, because I definitely think that having your own building, it's important in college football.
It is. And even though the Orange Bowl was essentially, it was our building, even though it technically wasn't, it belonged to the city. This would be the first time, which is crazy after 5 national championships. This team has their own stadium for the first time. That's pretty crazy to say. But at the same time, I see your point of, there's a lot of Broward fans. It's a mission for them to get down here. I get it. I'm from a selfish perspective that Tropical Park, I grew up going to Tropical Park on the weekends and all that. It's a 15, 20-minute drive from me from where I am down south.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be awesome for it to be there, because I remember when the Orange Bowl, I grew up in like the Pinecrest, Palmetto Bay area. A drive to the Orange Bowl was 20 minutes. Down US 1, make that left on 17th or wherever, and you're right there. But yeah, I see the gripe from Broward fans. I get it. And you know what? Hard Rock is an awesome facility. So I will say this, we don't need it. And honestly, I kind of like the fact that that's all pretty soon when this thing starts rolling again and we start winning, that's all the haters are going to say about us, that we don't have our own stadium, because that's what they're attacking right now, which is hilarious.
Well, did you see one of the latest attacks is I see Gator fans attacking the Canes because the chairs don't recline in the new temporary locker room, which is like that's like a weird thing. They're running out of things to attack Miami for when they're attacking a beautiful new locker room, but the luxurious leather chairs next to the lockers don't recline. That's what they're going after.
Which, by the way, those are our temporary locker rooms that The Rock, that Rock was like, hey, you need a new locker room? Yeah, here you go. Here's a few mil. Yeah, just that'll hold you guys over for a couple years. No, people are going after the recline, which is, again, hilarious. But yeah, man, I really like the artist renderings. I love the fact that I thought if they have a stadium in Tropical Park, one thing I said is you have to have one side open with like palm trees or whatever to try to recreate that like Orange Bowl feel, because that's kind of what made it unique. You can see like the downtown skyline. That part of it was pretty cool, and it made it Miami. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I like how they had palm trees like inside the stadium. Now, one of the palm trees was like in the artist rendering was like blocking a couple seats. So I hope they don't really do that, because like I don't think anyone wants. Yeah, I don't think that's really there, because you don't want to buy the seat where you're sitting right behind the palm tree.
No. But yeah, man, it's the fact that this is like kind of sort of becoming a reality now, because I remember 8-10 years ago, this was like, if they decided to throw down the money, if somebody came with deep pockets that can do this, it would be pretty cool. It's pretty cool that we're just talking about this, honestly. But we could play at Homestead Speedway. If we're winning, I don't care. I'll go to the games. So let's see. Smash. Oh, thank you, Birdstone. Smash that like button. Mr. Locked On Donno in the house. Yes, thank you for the support, as always, Birdstone. So next topic, more about the team itself, because I know, you're around the campus and around the practices and stuff. with the season on the horizon, where I think they're done playing their scrimmages, right? They don't have any more.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they don't have another one this week. I guess we'll probably find that out later in the week, but I don't think they have another one planned. But if they do, I'm sure someone will correct us if we're wrong about that.
Right. I think it's the last one.
Yeah.
Pretty soon focus will turn to, okay, our weekly opponent, which week 1, Bethune-Cookman. So you were talking on your show about like fill in the blank, like what we need to do to win the ACC. Was a great topic. I think we do have a chance. Like we have the ability on this roster. We have the roster to win the ACC. The ball has to bounce our way, obviously. But if you had to pick one of the things that you were talking about on your show, that man, if they do this one thing right, I think they'll lock up the conference. What of the few things you talk about, what would you think would be the one thing?
Yeah, I go back and forth on a couple of those. I think I'm going to say tackling, especially if I'm trying to think in my mind, what's it going to take to match up with Clemson, who I think is the class of the conference, and that's who you're going to see them in the regular season. Then you might see them again in the ACC championship game. Being able to match Clemson's physicality, obviously a lot of that happens in the line of scrimmage, and Clemson may still hold a slight advantage. They've got, one of the best defensive lines in the country. Miami's offensive line, I think, is getting a lot better. Clemson would test that, but I just look for Miami's defense for a team that was literally 130th out of 130 teams in missed tackles last year, and most missed tackles. You're not beating Clemson. You're not beating Texas A&M, certainly, if you can't be like, top 50, top 60 in tackling this year. So they have to make a big improvement there. And I know it's something that they work on tirelessly. I think it's hard to say how much they've improved on that when, you're not necessarily going full go in practices and even in the scrimmages, because you don't want to kill your teammates, right? I think Mario pushes these guys about as hard as you can possibly push them. But I know that they're drilling tackling constantly, because it's something that, having, spoken with Kevin Steele back in the spring, he is obsessed with getting these guys proper leverage and proper angles. I spoke to a couple of defensive players about it. I think it was Jafari Harvey that I spoke to about it most recently. And basically he says that like the first thing that they do as defensive players when they get to practice, and like the last thing that they do before they leave, is they're just drilling form tackling. So I'm assuming a lot of the drills aren't necessarily happening at full speed. So we've actually got to see it kind of manifest once the season starts. But I think that's a big thing. And, I think that's number one, is tackling. The other thing that we talked about today, what Miami needs to do to win the ACC. I'm sure you've covered this, John, and everyone's covering this. Receivers just finding consistency in catching footballs, because it's been an issue. Like, it was an issue in the spring game. It's been an issue throughout fall camp. I kind of had a suspicion going back even before spring practices that, you're not just going to automatically fill Charleston Rambo's shoes and Mike Harley's shoes. So we're yet to really see a couple of guys step up and show that they can consistently make plays and hold on to football. So I think that's the other big thing.
Yeah. Tackling is a huge one for me. I've been saying since probably the COVID year that if you improve the tackling on this team, they go from a 7-win team to a 9-win team pretty much instantly. But I think in addition to that, not to just piggyback off what you were saying, one thing that I don't think was talked about enough was running the ball. Yeah. If this team can run the football consistently, which is something they have not done since Duke Johnson was here, then I have a hard time seeing any team aside from maybe Clemson or A&M beating this team, because it helps you in like 3 areas. It keeps your defense fresh because you're moving the chains, keeping their defense on the field. It wears them out. It opens up the passing game. And, like an offensive lineman, it lets them get into a rhythm. Offensive linemen like run blocking. They like firing out and going after tacklers. So I think the running game, if you get that in order for the first time in almost a decade, I think it solves a ton of problems. I don't know what you think about that.
No, 1,000%. And that's one of the reasons why, certain fall camp injuries have been a little bit concerning. I feel a lot better about the offensive line than I thought I would. So when it comes to actual run blocking, I'm pretty optimistic. We just need to keep our running backs in bubble wrap for the next few weeks because, it sounds to me like I don't know if any sort of confirmation has come from the university, but there's been a lot of bad vibes about Trevante Citizen's injury. I think he's going to miss significant time, if not the whole season. Don't aggregate me on that because it's not confirmed, but it doesn't sound good. I think I'm a little bit more optimistic about Don Chaney. I think he might miss some games, but I think he'll be available at some point during the season. And so, you've lost, especially with Citizen, how high hopes we had, like a guy who can really run between the tackles, and Chaney can as well. But I think Miami's still in okay shape because I think Henry Parrish, coming from Ole Miss, I'm expecting him to have a really good year. I think Jalen Knighton's going to have an awesome year. I think he's been the best of the bunch so far in fall camp. And I think Thad Franklin is probably a little bit underrated. I think he's more than just a short yardage guy. And then, you look a little bit deeper on the roster. Devin Perry, the walk-on, who I don't know why no one's given this guy a scholarship yet, because he's working his butt off and he's had a really good fall camp and had a really good spring. And, there's a couple of other non-scholarship guys that can do a little bit of work. And I also wonder if Brashard Smith could get a little bit, maybe for some gadget plays. He can line up. I think he lined up 20 times in the backfield last year. He can do some of that. And I know, and I don't be surprised if you see that with Brashard Smith, because something Cristobal talked about in the last couple of days was that Brashard Smith and Xavier Restrepo have maybe been the two best receivers at camp. Technically, they play the same exact position. So Mario basically said, like, the onus is on us to get the two of these guys on the field at the same time, right? And maybe one of the ways you might do that, like, you could probably line up Smith out wide. He's really fast on the outside, and you could probably line him up in the backfield as well, so you can get Restrepo and Brashard on the field at the same time.
Yeah, I feel like with how creative people are getting with their offenses now with formations, that's not going to be hard to do, getting those playmakers on the field. Because I think, and Brashard, I think he's versatile enough that you could put him, not all the time, but you can put him on the outside on a certain play. You can put him in the slot. You can line him up in the backfield. He's a Swiss Army knife, in my opinion. Yeah. Manny Perez asking, how close is Zion to 100%? I'm not sure how close he is to 100%. But I heard he was out there today, or am I wrong on that? He was out kind of at least doing some drills or working out with the team.
Yeah, I think I didn't go to practice today, but I think what happened was I don't think he was out there like right away, like for the part of practice that media was able to view. But then it was Susan Miller-Degnan from the Herald who tweeted out, because like she was around at the end of the media can only watch like 30 to 45 minutes. So she was like kind of hanging around afterwards, and she saw him going to the locker room, I think holding pads or taking pads off. So I think he did something today, Zion. And I think it sounds to me like he's ahead of schedule, right? I mean, when he had his procedure done, a scope, I think it was a couple weeks before media day or a week before media day. And it was like a 4 to 6 week timetable, which I think if it ended up being the 6 weeks, that would have him like, I don't know, late first or second week of the regular season. I think he's ahead of schedule. Like, a lot of people have been asking me, is he going to be able to play for the Texas A&M game? I don't know. Like you said, I don't know if he'll be 100%. Like, I don't know what 100% really means in football, because these guys are always carrying some kind of an issue. But I think he'll be ready to play well before Texas A&M. So unless there's a setback, I think he'll be the starting left tackle even before the Texas A&M game. Maybe he'll get some reps in the Southern Miss game to sort of get his feet wet.
Yeah, the great thing about, I like those seasons where we kick off in a big game, like with FSU or Florida, but I also like these seasons for different reasons, where we start against no disrespect to them, but we start against a Bethune or a FAMU. You start against a couple of lower level opponents, and you have that luxury. You can kind of throw them out there a little bit, see what you got. You don't need Zion to start to be able to win this games. We should be able to win week 1 by 40, 50 points. So it's not, that's the good thing. It's not going to be an issue. You can kind of phase them in kind of as we go. All right. So we covered the ACC and the stadium and all that stuff. I wanted to ask you real quick, because, you've been around some of the practices and stuff, and, they talked about certain young guys like Nigel Lee. Nigel Lee Kelly's getting a lot of press right now. I'm sure they were trying to keep him under wraps, but I think even on like national shows, they're talking about him, which is crazy. Dude's a freak, which we kind of knew when we recruited him, because I think even Larry Bluestein, I want to say it was Blue or one of these guys, said that, yeah, he might be the best natural edge rusher in the class, or one of them. And if Blue says it, it's probably true. So of the young guys coming in, specifically, the freshmen or maybe like a transfer, is there anybody you got your eye on specifically that might make a real quick impact?
Yeah, I mean, Nigel Leak is one of them. So I'll start with that, and I'll co-sign on everything you said. His bend, like he's long. He doesn't seem to have joints. Like he's like Gumby out there, which is a great trait to have as a pass rusher. He's already big. I think he's 240, 245, and he's not even turned 18 years old yet. Like he's the youngest of all the true freshmen. So this is one of those things, like if he's already wowing this many people in practice now, like you can imagine 2 years from now, right? And so I think this is going to be one of those where he'll probably get better as the season goes on. Like, maybe he'll have like a little bit of like kind of a wild start, just kind of understanding and learning the speed and the nuances of the college game. I think he could end up like second half of the season really blowing up. Another one for me, he's not a true freshman, but I think he's got 3 years of eligibility yet left. He's one of the transfers. I'm not sure if I say his first name correctly, because I've heard it said 2 different ways. I call him Daryl. I've heard some people call him Darrell, but Daryl Jackson, the transfer from Maryland, he's a little bit raw, but he's 6'6". He told me he's got a 7 foot, like he's got the wingspan of a 7-footer. And like I've seen videos of this guy with this like crazy vertical leap, and he's over 300 pounds. Like this is just weird. And he doesn't have like bad weight on him. I think because he's so tall, he's a defensive tackle. And so I think Daryl Jackson next to Leonard Taylor, and there's a handful of guys that can rotate in and out of defensive tackle, but the 2 of those guys together, I'm really excited to watch what they could do. A true freshman who's been getting some love and doing some good things out there. This goes back to the wide receivers. Isaiah Horton, true freshman wide receiver. He's been talked about and been doing some good things in practice. So I think that's another one. And listen, I would love to, and I hope he is able to play at some point this year. If we were having the same conversation a week and a half ago, the first guy I would have brought up would have been Trevante Citizen. So I prayers for him, because he suffered a significant injury. I hope he's able to come back and play sooner rather than later and get through that. But whenever he plays, whether it's this season or next season, I think Trevante Citizen, who already looks like a grown man, he's going to make a big time impact. And then another true freshman, I'll give you another one on defense who's really been putting in some good work, is Chris Graves. At defensive back. I think he's been looking really good. And Isaiah Dunson is another guy in the defensive backfield. So I think there's a lot. And I hadn't even gotten to transfer guys, because there are upperclassmen coming into the transfer portal. Akeem Mesidor, I think is going to be one of the most impactful transfers. And I think probably the most important transfer that Miami landed is Caleb Johnson at linebacker, because that unit needed so much help. This guy's 24 years old, Caleb. COVID messed up the whole redshirt thing. Like, you've got guys on the team that are 6-year redshirt seniors. I'm not sure if he's a 5-year or a 6-year, but he's 24 years old, so he's probably a 6th-year. Ton of experience. He's been clearly the best linebacker in fall camp so far. So that one, it's good to mix up. You get some young guys, you get some really, really experienced guys, and I think there's a handful of players that came in through the portal, and even a couple of these true freshmen who are going to make a big impact right away.
Yeah. I think Caleb Johnson, you said that he's going to be a very important addition. He might be the most important guy on the defense, just, playing the Mike position and, making sure everybody's lined up and being, I actually didn't know he was 24 already. I knew he was like one of the older guys, but, at that age, when they're that young, every year of experience really matters. It makes a huge difference. I remember when, you remember that season that Jim Larinaga had in 2013, the Shane Larkin year with the Hoops team. Everybody was like a redshirt senior. That makes a difference. That makes a huge difference. So, yeah, I totally agree there. Daryl Jackson's one guy I agree with. I think he's going to wreak havoc. I mean, you can't 6'6", 320, 330, whatever he is, you can't teach that. Like, either you have that size or you don't. I think he's going to cause major problems, especially like in the ACC Coastal schedule. He's going to cause big problems. Before I forget, Stephen Gomez, thank you so much for the donation. The keys to the season are converting on third down on offense and tackling on defense. I agree. Converting on third down.
Third down, that's a really good one. I hadn't gotten so specific on that, but that's a great point, because it seems like almost every year, like since the Diaz era, and maybe even in the Mark Richt era, Miami's always bad on both sides of the ball on third down. Like, they're bad at giving up third downs and they're bad at converting third down.
Yeah. Do you remember? I mean, I don't want to remember these days, but before the 4-game winning streak against FSU, when they were beating us every year, when they had Dalvin Cook, I remember two things of those games. We could never run the ball for whatever reason. Couldn't run the ball, and we were 1 for 17 on third down in those games. And it would still come down to the wire. Yeah. That's right. It would still come down to the final drive somehow, some way. I don't know. But yeah, converting on third down, I agree. Steven, that's huge. Norman, $12 dono. Thank you so much. Let's go, fam. Please hit that like button. Please go follow Locked On Canes. Alex Donno drops. You drop a show every day?
Yeah, we drop a show every day. It's that's actually one of the tried and true formats of the Locked On Network. There's a couple of months in the summer where you only have to drop 3 a week, but I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to keep dropping 5 a week. Sometimes we do weekend stuff as well, because I just have a lot of fun, man. Like, this is putting out these Canes episodes every day. It's one of the more fun things that I've been able to do in my broadcasting career, especially when another part of the Locked On mantra is you keep it short, it's 25 to 30 minute episodes. So I enjoy cranking them out.
I agree with that last part, keeping them short. I keep my shows under an hour. They've been creeping closer to 45 minutes lately. We used to do 2-hour shows and I'd be dead afterwards.
Well, and the thing is, honestly, there's no point in doing anything longer than an hour unless you're on, if you're on AM radio. Obviously, I've done a lot of AM radio where sometimes you do 4-hour shows because people are getting in their cars at different times. They're only listening to 20, 30 minutes at a time. But when you're doing a podcast and a YouTube video, I think anything more than an hour, it's just what are you doing it for? Because, people don't need you, because most of the people who listen to these or watch these are actually watching the whole show. You don't need to go for more than an hour.
I 100% agree. Couple more questions and we'll get you out of here. I don't want to keep you on too long. And I heard the rustling behind me. I know my DoorDash arrived, so I want to get to that.
Nice.
Yes, I'm excited.
Well, what are you going to eat if you don't mind me asking?
You ever tried that place? They've opened a few lately. Bole. It's kind of like chicken and rice.
I think I've seen them. Yeah, no, I've never tried that one.
They're really good. Very underrated. They're probably going to pop up more.
Okay.
But anyway, before I get you out of here, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned the younger guys and also the older guys on the team. There's 6-7 year guys on the team, which I think that experience is going to benefit the locker room. But I'll start with this. I was going to ask you who of the veterans that have been with the program forever might make an impact, finally pop this year. This is finally their year. I think people are sleeping on Will Mallory a little bit. I think that dude could possibly have a monster season. Who do you have on your mind of the guys like Blades, Frierson, maybe DJ Ivey, guys like that who might really pop this year?
I'll get to some of the names you mentioned because I agree. Another one, I think he's technically a junior, but third, fourth year, I don't know. Zion Nelson, I think is really, really important there. But yeah, you mentioned a couple of important ones on the defensive side of the football. Blades, he's been through so much. I can't even keep track of all the issues this guy had. I mean, he had myocarditis, which forced him, to miss a season. He also had surgery. He's been through so much. He seems physically and mentally just ready to really, really dominate this year and, keep on that Blades family legacy. And you were great to bring up DJ Ivy. He's had his ups and downs, no question. But this guy, he's getting so much praise from Mario, and everything I've seen since spring from Ivy, he's passing the eye test. Like, it looks like he's really getting it, and he's getting more consistent in coverage. So I think that's a big one. This guy not homegrown because he came over second year as a transfer, but Tyreek Stevenson is going to be really, really key this year. He's going to be one of the better corners in the country, and he's a leader. Like, if you have a conversation with Tyreek Stevenson, you're like, oh, this guy seems like an NFL veteran, like the way he carries himself and the way that he talks. So I think those are the big ones for me, experienced guys that I think we can really count on.
Well, there you go, man. So yeah, like I said, I don't want to keep you on too long. I know you got your obligations, but yeah, Alex, thank you so much for being on again. I was a fan of yours in the past, so I still love your new show, Locked On Canes. Again, if you haven't followed them, what are you doing? Go look up Locked On Canes. Go search it on YouTube. Go hit that subscribe button. Go like his videos. It helps with the algorithm and all that. And yeah, like he said, he drops a new show every single day. They're nice. They're short and sweet. You can listen to them on your commute. You can listen to them during a quick lunch break. It's great stuff. Donno, thank you so much for being on, man. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. It's always fun joining you, and yeah, I hope we can do it again soon. And I've got to bring you on Locked On as well. We can have a lot of fun with that, especially now the season's about to start. So thank you so much for having me, and thank everybody for watching.
Yeah, thank you, man. Appreciate it. All right, so that was Alex Donno of Locked On Canes, and formerly, honestly, I don't know if he still does like QEM and all that stuff. Maybe he does the radio still. I don't know. It's been years since I've listened to sports radio, but yeah, again, he's a true pro. Thank you to him for being on. Yes, Mark, thank you for the compliment, sir. Appreciate it. Birdstone, to the question before, I think Blades, Elijah, and the running back group. Yeah, Elijah Roberts is an interesting one because I think he's going into his third year, at least his third year with the program. I think he's in his third year now. He's going to be he's going to provide some nice depth off the bench. So I agree with you there. But a guy that's, as far as the guy that made pop, Mallory on offense. And I really think, trying to decide between Blades and Ivy. I think the fan base is so behind him. I'm going to go with Blades. I don't think he's going to start or anything just because of the guys that are in front of him. James and Avante, those guys are just freaks. They're just on another level. But I think Blades comes in, at least off the bench, as a rotational guy and makes an impact. Let's see. Elijah Arroyo and Elijah Roberts. Okay. Arroyo's one of the younger guys, though. I was thinking more like the vets that have been here 4 or 5 years. Don't forget my question. Let's see. Where was your question? Here we go. John, what do you think? I believe the defense is the strength of our team. Again, finally, in the D-line and DBs are our 2 strongest positions. I would agree with you. I really would agree with you. I think D-line, we've covered it a lot the last couple of weeks. I mean, they're going to throw wave after wave at guys at the offensive line of our ACC opponents, and we're going to give them hell. Like, they're going to hate playing against our defense. And we're going to be always fresh, which is the best part. Linebacker, I like where we're at much better than I did a few months ago with the addition of Caleb Johnson. I think Chase Smith, if not this year, latest next year, I think he ends up being a star at Miami. And, you got guys like Frierson who could play the star, maybe Blades, maybe James Williams comes down and plays the star from time to time. Only thing is we're not very deep. Yes, you have, Corey Flagg, who's experienced. He can come off the bench. You got, Keontre, who's a pretty sure tackler. He put on like 25 pounds of muscle. So let's see how he moves. If that helped him, if that helps him with his game, we'll see. We're not super deep at linebacker, but there's going to be a lot of formations where we only have 2 linebackers on the field. So that'll help. And as far as the secondary goes, we may end up, I say may, let's see what they do on the field. We may end up having the best safety tandem in the country, but with either Cam and Avante or Avante and James, however they want to do it. You know, they might both be all conference, all American caliber guys. They have that kind of ceiling. And then at corner, Tyreek, who's a consummate professional. I think he's a future NFL guy, second, third round pick around there. He's just solid, you know. And to Corey Couch, he put on some good weight. We saw how good he was in 2020 covering those deep balls. You know, it's let's see if he returns to that form with the added, you know, muscle to his frame. And then you got Daryl Porter Jr., who you brought him in as a transfer for this reason, to see if he can compete for that starting role next to Tyreek. Then you got, but they even mentioned Malik Curtis, which I'm not surprised by. Malik made a couple of plays in the spring game if you were paying attention. So I'm not surprised there. He's explosive. He's fast. He's got that kind of like twitchy quickness that you can't teach. Reminds me a lot of Travis Benjamin. So he's going to be a playmaker for us, I think, you know, down the road. Maybe not so much his freshman year, but down the road. So you got a lot of bodies at DJ Ivey, even, who's going into like his 19th year with the program. You know, 6'2", long, knows how to play the position, may finally be put in the right, you know, like not the right position, but the, you know, play the right style. You know, maybe that more of that bump and run that he likes to play, not so much of this soft zone that we've been playing for years and years. So a lot of potential out of that cornerback room. I don't think there's any All-Americans, no first-round picks, but a lot of solid guys that can make plays. And then, I think I covered the safety. So defense, I feel very confident with. Honestly, this team, it all comes down to the offensive line. And I'll just leave it at that. Anyway, did I hit all the donos? Yes, I did. Heard Corey Flagg is killing this fall. I'm excited to see what we get from him. You know, the guy's a workhorse, man. And that's, if anything else, it's good for the locker room. He's a great example. If he can help us like stop the run, you know, come in kind of like, I don't know if you remember Mike Smith. He was Shaq Quarterman's backup 2016, 2017. You know, he was a nice dude off the bench that would come in, give Shaq a break, make a few tackles. I think he had 1 or 2 interceptions even. So you never know. If he can fill that role, I'm good. All right, guys. 87 in the chat. Thank you so much for coming on and watching us. Earlier, we had Alex Donno from Locked On Canes and of, you know, South Florida sports radio fame. Please go follow his channel. And if you missed it, go back and rewatch it. Or you can just, you know, hit that little thing and drag it and rewind it. So yeah, thanks for being on. You know, I'm really appreciating the support. I can't say that enough. Week and a half. Football. It's almost here, guys. It's almost here. I can't wait. As always, it's all about that U. Go Canes. Have a good night, everybody.